Hey people, this is Lex Avellino, and today I'm going to show you something that's a big part of my workflow, and I think something that should be a big part of every professional 3D workflow. Whether you're trying to be professional, whether you are professional, you're already making money doing it, this is something that's going to be important. It's a big trick or a cheat, but honestly it's just something that is kind of part of the process. And this is buying your models. And a lot of people are afraid of buying their models because they're spending money and it doesn't feel personal, right? It doesn't feel like it's theirs. But I'm going to show you how you can make this your own, how you can use this to speed up your workflow, and make this something that pushes your work forward, because that's really what you want, is to be doing better work. And I think this is really important because if you're going to grow, if you're going to do more, you need to bring in the help of other people. And even if you don't have a team that you're working with, by using other models that you purchase, that is your team, right? That's how you can add more to what you're doing without actually having team members or people that you hire to work with you. So it's a really important part of being able to have a bigger image, to be able to do bigger projects, and to really be able to put more into your work. This is actually something that Andrew Price, or Blender Guru on YouTube, recently mentioned in one of his videos.
Stuff that could potentially take you weeks if you were to model it yourself. For stuff like this, you've got to use a model library. So whether it's a free one like Blend Swap or a paid one like TurboSquid, there is no shame in using somebody else's model in your scene.
I thought it was really cool that he mentioned that, because it's something I've been thinking for a long time. It's something I've been doing for a while, is buying models, because ultimately, I don't have the time to be doing all these things by hand, by making a bunch of custom models. But I've got big scenes that I've got to create for my clients, and so you got to find a way to make it work. So I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to try and make this quick. So we're going to go to cgtrader.com. You can use something like turbosquid.com as well, but I recommend CGTrader because I think their models are more high quality. And these are the models I'm going to be using, DualShock controller and PS4. And this one's $3, the other one's $14. For the amount of hours you could put into a model like this, this is not a bad deal at all. So I'm going to download these, and what you're looking for, you want to be redoing as little work as possible. So what I'm doing is I'm downloading the OBJ with the MTL file, and the MTL is going to have the textures in there. That's what you want. You want to make sure you have things as organized as possible so you're not redoing a bunch of work. Sometimes they'll have a separate folder with the textures, in which case you gotta hope that they named all the textures nicely so you can know where everything belongs. But every now and then you gotta do a little problem solving. So that's hopefully what we're gonna be walking through. Then for the PS4 console, they've got an FBX download, which will have some texture or some shaders in there with textures, and we're gonna have to redo the shaders. But since the textures are already in there, it just makes it a little bit easier and gets rid of one step for us. So we're going to hop over to Blender. I'm just going to quickly add a plane into the scene, scale that up, and I usually start by adding an HDR for lighting. So go to my node editor. I always use cycles, and I've got my startup scene here with an environment texture already plugged into the background node. So I'm going to pull up an HDR. I get these from hdrihaven.com. A lot of you guys probably already know about that if you're familiar with a lot of the Blender community people. I'm just going to pull up a quick HDRI here so you can see we've got some nice environment lighting. I'm going to press Control B and drag a preview window out so that we can just preview this nice little area. Okay, so now I am going to import the PlayStation. Okay, you can see right off the bat, this thing's a mess. We're obviously missing some textures or something. But to keep things really simple, it looks like the origins are in a bunch of different places. All these little blue dots are the different origins of the different pieces, because these are all different pieces right now. So I'm going to select all of these, minus the plane, and I want to hit Control J to join those. Now we've got all the materials in one place, okay? So it's easy to start fixing these shaders. And I'm gonna press Control Shift Alt C and origin to geometry. So we've got this in a reasonable place. Looks like we missed something. Okay, now it looks like we've got everything in there. Nothing's missing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start going through these materials. We're just gonna go through them one at a time. Sometimes the names make sense, sometimes they don't. You gotta figure out what they're doing. So I usually start, pull open a shader. I'm actually gonna pull this off to the side. Now, these are the textures, right? So we're gonna try and keep those so we don't lose those. I don't think we're gonna need them for this texture. I've done this once before. But I keep them in there anyways, just in case. So I'm gonna select those in the material output, hit Control I to invert it, and delete everything except these. I'm almost always gonna start out with a principled BSDF, and then I've got Node Wrangler enabled. So if you don't know about that, Google it. But I'm gonna connect these. And then, like I said, I don't think I'm gonna need these textures because I don't think they're doing anything right now. But I'm just gonna drop this down, and you begin to see where it's being used, right? If you're not sure where it's being used, like it's a really small thing, I'll turn this into like magenta, so it's like really easy to spot. Obviously, it's hard to miss right now. So I'm just gonna drop this down. Even when it's all black though, if I go back to the reference for the PS4, you know, this is supposed to be a lot darker. So what you can do so that it's not reflecting so much light is pull down the specular. Because the specular is how much light it's reflecting. And the more light it's reflecting, the lighter it's gonna look. Okay, that's not so bad. So we're gonna go to the next one. And again, we've got this crazy mess. For this one, I'm just keeping the material output, add another principled shader. And this is pretty much the method throughout. Sometimes you gotta do a little like, okay, like right here, you can see, once we find where it's being used, we realize that is actually supposed to be the light. So we're gonna drop in an emission shader, flip this over to blue, crank that up. There you go. And we're just gonna go through each of them like that. Sometimes you gotta get creative with the shaders you're making or figuring out how a particular material is being used, but this one's pretty straightforward. So we're gonna make this all black. We're gonna add some metallic so that it's nice and shiny, and pull down the roughness so that it kind of matches this glossiness. And this is just something to get a feel for too as you work with more models. So Sony text. I forget if this is the PS4 or this over here. So I'm just going to drop in a principled, change this to pink, and it's neither. Oh, it's this one. Okay, and it's also affecting these right now, and I don't think it should be. I think it should be a separate material. So what I would do, I'm gonna go in, select this material, and maybe these should be white. I don't even think they should be white. These should all be different. Okay, these should be the same color, but these should not. And that's just the problem with exporting an SBF sometimes. So what I'm gonna do, go to wireframe, deselect these and leave them. But for these, I'm gonna duplicate the texture, hit the plus sign to make a new variation of this, and just do like a chrome. I think kind of what the inside of these ports is supposed to look like. Hit assign, and there you go. Looks a lot better. Sometimes you just got to do a little figuring out to see what's going on and what it's supposed to look like, because the FBX don't necessarily export the best shaders for Blender. And then let's go to this black one. And I'll just go back and reference the image to make sure I'm matching the textures up right. So this is going to be that logo over there. I think this is supposed to be white and reflective. Maybe not so white. Every now and then, you gotta figure out what something's affecting. Like I said, sometimes you can just make it pink. There you go. And this. I'm gonna drop the specular down again to get a nice dark look. Okay, that looks pretty nice. The rest of it's just going to be down to lighting. So you can see in just a few minutes, we've got a pretty good looking prop here that you can drop into any scene and just add a lot of detail pretty quickly. So that's kind of the point of all this, is to be able to do more with your scenes and add detail fast. It's pretty much going to be the same process with whatever you're doing. Again, like I said, sometimes you got to decipher the names of textures if people don't name their textures appropriately. But it's a little bit of problem solving, as you can see. But with some clever use of the principled BSDF, you can get through this pretty quickly. So I'm going to be dropping another tutorial soon on a workflow with nature assets. Speaking of paid assets, I've been using a tool called Megascans for my nature workflow. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in some photorealistic nature, which can be hard to do. And I'll see you in the next one.